Monsieur le Président, Madame Macron, mon épouse et moi-même sommes ravis de vous accueillir au château de Windsor pour cette visite d'État, la première que je reçois ici depuis mon avènement au trône. I recall with such fond memories our visit to France in 2023, when you so graciously hosted us, Monsieur le Président. Much has happened in the meantime, and France and the United Kingdom have stood ever closer since then. At this crucial point in our shared histories, your visit is another occasion to celebrate our deep and enduring friendship. Indeed, these ties extend beyond friendship into family. The castle in which we meet this evening was begun by my ancestor and your sometime countryman, William, Duke of Normandy, in the year 1070. It remains the oldest and largest occupied castle in the world. So it is perhaps rather appropriate that my son, the Prince of Wales, who shares that earlier William's name, has made Windsor his home with his family, like so many of our predecessors. The Norman English society that was established by William the Conqueror was neither, at least initially, an entente nor especially cordial, but it marked, on one view, the beginning of 1,000 years of shared history and culture between our two peoples, which has enriched our two societies beyond measure. Cette ère fut aussi le début d'un partage linguistique.
A linguistic sharing. Even if I can only hope that by listening to my French, you won't feel the same thing that Princess Catherine of France felt during her, when she learned English in Shakespeare's Henry V, where she said, "Oh heavens, sufficient, that's sufficient. Don't say anything else."
Louis-Philippe, King of the French, stayed here as a guest of my great-great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, in 1844. That was the first time in 400 years that a reigning French king had visited England. By any standards, that's a long time to wait for an invitation to dinner. At least fewer than 2 years have passed since we last dined together, Monsieur le Président. Queen Victoria had herself chosen France for her first overseas journey just the year before. These reciprocal visits laid the foundations for the alliance that we enjoy today. Their impact was tangible. Soon after Louis-Philippe had left Windsor, Queen Victoria wrote to him to say how much we wish to see growing stronger and stronger this entente cordiale between our two countries, which exists so happily between us personally. Today, Queen Victoria's wish is a reality. France is one of our strongest allies, as well as a country for which my wife and I have deep affection personally. We marked 120 years of the Entente Cordiale last year with your Garde Républicaine parading alongside the King's Guard at Buckingham Palace, while number 7 company of the Coldstream Guards joined their French comrades on the courtyard of the Élysée. This unprecedented ceremonial moment reflected the depth of our country's modern-day cooperation, our armies quite literally standing shoulder to shoulder. Less than 2 years ago, we celebrated that relationship in Paris and Bordeaux on our first state visit to France. As we look back on that special time, we recall with great fondness the warmest of welcomes the people of France extended to us. This very hall in which we meet this evening, rebuilt after a terrible fire, also recalls the extraordinary restoration, Monsieur le Président, of Notre-Dame de Paris that we were able to see at first hand during our visit. It is so very special to see the cathedral open once again, and I pay tribute to the expertise, craftsmanship, and determination of all those involved. A millennium ago, this castle was built to guard the western approach to London. Today, our two countries face a multitude of more complex threats, emanating from multiple directions. As friends and as allies, we face them together. These challenges know no borders. No fortress can protect us against them this time. Instead, the answer lies in partnership, and we, France and Britain, must help to lead the way. Our two nations share not only values, but also the tireless determination to act on them in the world. Of course, we would not be neighbors if we did not have our differences. This is a relationship built not only on cooperation and mutual fascination, but also on amicable competition and occasionally even, dare I say, confusion. The indomitable Gaul, Asterix, himself, and no doubt many of his compatriots since, struggled to comprehend our beloved tasse de thé avec un nuage de lait, taken at precisely 5 o'clock in the afternoon, just as we find it impossible to bake a baguette quite as well as those your artisans make in France. And can I just take this opportunity to say how delighted I was to see that finally that great French contribution to world cuisine has now been given its rightful place and recognized by UNESCO as part of the cultural heritage of humanity. Enfin, not too soon, I would argue. In 1960, President de Gaulle said, "The English are the English. That is not their fault." Indeed, some of our differences are so profound, they may never be overcome. But we have made remarkable rapprochements in other areas. This evening, we are about to drink English sparkling wine made by a French champagne house. This would have been scarcely believable to at least some of our predecessors. Mais avant tout, nos cultures sont
our cultures are thousands of years together, deeply linked. And what's possibly the most remarkable thing is the way in which the specialty of one country is part of the story of the other. For centuries, our citizens have admired one another. We've made each other laugh, and we've imitated one another. We've exchanged ideas. We've exchanged fashion and also music. And when Monet was painting London fog, when Jane Birkin, the most French of British, sang in French, or when Thierry Henry scored a goal in Highbury, the alliance was perfect. As far as I'm concerned, throughout my life, and during my 36th visit to your country, I've admired your extraordinary attributes and exploits.
son art de vivre,
You know how to live.
et son vin.
Your cuisine
Ses
and your wine are extraordinary.
réalisations dans les
Your
sciences,
relationship with sciences,
l'ingénierie
engineering,
et la médecine.
and medicine.
Son
Your
excellence
excellence in the areas such as luxury, aeronautics, or space.
son exquise
Your
architecture,
exquisite architecture and your amazing literature, whose authors have influenced thinking throughout the world.
And, ladies and gentlemen, in what other country in the world could so flourish something called l'Association de Sauvegarde de l'œuf mayonnaise? In 1944, Sir Winston Churchill said, "All my life, I have been grateful for the contribution France has made to the culture and glory of Europe, and above all, for the sense of personal liberty and the rights of man, which has radiated from the soul of France. Show me a moment when I swerved from this conception, and you will show me a moment when I have been wrong." General de Gaulle, of course, spoke from London on the 18th of June 1940 with his message, one that stirs French souls to this day, that the idea of France shall never be extinguished. Monsieur le Président, today, with the Prime Minister, you paid your respects to your predecessor outside his headquarters at 4 Carlton Gardens, from where, with British support, he kept that flame alive. Le sacrifice
of our ancestors, and we honored them together last year in Normandy during the 80th anniversary of D-Day. They showed us the courage necessary to be able to have done this. General de Gaulle talked about our alliance being an entente of democracies. And I really believe in the friendship between the United Kingdom and France. I believe that it's essential in order to preserve our freedoms and peace in Europe.
Monsieur le Président, the summit that you and the Prime Minister will hold in London this week will deepen our alliance and broaden our partnership still further. Our armed forces will cooperate even more closely across the world, including to support Ukraine, as we join together in leading a coalition of the willing in defense of liberty and freedom from oppression. In other words, in defense of our shared values. Our technology experts will also collaborate even more deeply to determine how we harness artificial intelligence for the good. Our diplomats will work together to defend the international rule of law and the multilateral system. Our security services and police will go further still to protect us against the profound challenges of terrorism, organized crime, cyber attacks, and, of course, irregular migration across the English Channel. And our businesses will innovate together, generating growth, trade, and investment for our economies and across the world. And crucially, our conservationists, our governments, and our private sectors will work as one to tackle deforestation, protect nature, and preserve our oceans, issues for which you and I share a particular concern, Monsieur le Président. When I spoke at the French Senate in 2023, I called this an entente pour la durabilité. On that visit, we jointly launched the International Panel for Biodiversity Credits, a project which has the potential to transform the way in which the market can protect and restore nature by mobilizing capital and incentivizing conservation. I know you believe in the importance of that as much as I do. In ways like this and many others, I believe at this crucial moment at which the very future of our planet hangs in the balance, the UK and France have a critical role to play together. In this respect, I hope I can offer my warmest congratulations on your leadership in hosting such a significant Ocean Summit in Nice last month. Ainsi, avec espoir et fierté, je célèbre ici
Celebrate here with
et
you
avec vous un partenariat
a really
véritablement moderne
contemporary
entre nos deux
partnership
pays.
between our two countries.
Therefore, as we dine here in this ancient place, redolent with our shared history, allow me to propose a toast to France and to our new entente. An entente not only past and present, but for the future, and no longer just cordial, but now amical.
In other words, friendly.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, Your Excellencies, Honorable Ministers, my Lords, Aldermen, Sheriffs, Chief Commoner, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Your words of welcome are an honor to my wife and myself and touch us deeply. I would now like to say how much I appreciate your welcoming us to Windsor, a sign of your great courtesy and a testament to your friendship with France. Could there be a better symbol of the longevity and solidity of your nation than this palace, built long ago by the Normans as a fortress? It was put to its original use again during the Blitz, when it protected Princess Elizabeth and her younger sister Margaret. Et si vous me l'autorisez,
If you allow me,
Majesté,
Your Majesty,
c'est à la reine Elisabeth II que vont mes
It's-
premières pensées ce soir.
I'm thinking first and
Français
foremost,
ont
of
porté
Queen
à votre
Elizabeth
mère la reine une
II,
admiration
because the French
et
had
une
an
affection
enormous amount of
authentique.
admiration and real affection for your mother, and I believe that it was
Car elle parlait
reciprocal.
notre langue, comme
Because
vous,
she spoke our language just as
aimait
you,
notre
sir.
culture,
She loved our
nos chevaux.
culture, our horses,
et qu'aucun autre pays n'a eu le
and
privilège
there
de
was
la
no other
recevoir aussi
country
souvent que
that
nous.
received her as often as we did.
To you, she was your queen. To us, she was the queen. Permettez-moi d'ajouter que
And
l'attachement
allow
de
me
mes
to
compatriotes
add
s'adresse
that the
aussi à votre
affection of my
personne.
compatriots is also towards you.
Votre combat pour l'environnement
You
et la
fight for the
biodiversité,
environment and
au nord comme au sud de
biodiversity
notre planète.
in the north to the south
Votre
of our planet,
détermination
your
à valoriser la
determination
qualité des
to
produits agricoles,
ensure that
votre
agricultural
résolution à
products are
défendre
of
et renouveler les métiers
good quality,
et
and you want
savoir-faire
to
issus de la tradition,
defend craftsmanship and defend tradition. And in fact, it was useful with regard to the reconstruction of Notre Dame that you've just mentioned. And before that, this very castle within which we find ourselves tonight,
autant de motifs de
they
plébiscite
are
pour vos engagements.
so many reasons to respect our
Et sachez,
commitments.
Votre
And
Majesté,
know, Your
quand vous
Majesty,
êtes monté
that
à la
when
tribune
you
européenne pour défendre les
decided
fromages
to
au lait cru,
defend
vous avez définitivement
French cheeses
gagné
made with
tous les cœurs
raw milk,
français.
you certainly won all French hearts.
Face à ceux qui préfèrent la
And
faveur
faced with those
accidentée
who
à toute
prepare
forme de prise de risque à la
sanitized
table de
blandness
repas
to
comme
any
celle des
form
nations,
of
notre commune
risk-taking
défense du camembert
at the
et
meal
du
table,
Roquefort
our
devient le
defense of
manifeste
camembert and Roquefort
bactériologique, si je puis dire,
becomes
d'une
a
certaine
bacteriological
diversité.
manifesto with regard to a certain
Plus
idea
sérieusement,
of the civilization. But to be
c'est
more
une
serious,
élégance,
it's a certain
une
elegance,
constance,
a certain
une
constancy,
habitude du
a
cœur,
certain
comme
habit
disait
of the
Tocqueville,
heart, just as
que
Tocqueville
nous aimons
said,
tant.
that makes us so fond of you.
Cette affection que nous
And this
portons à la couronne
affection
anglaise
that we have for
n'est pas
the
le moindre
English
des
crown
paradoxes d'un peuple français, je le
isn't
rappelais tout à l'heure,
certainly a
qui
paradox within
aime
the
la
French
monarchie,
people,
sincèrement,
because we really
tant qu'elles
like
sont choisies.
monarchies as long as they are with others.
Votre ancêtre, la reine
And your
Victoria, avait
ancestor,
toujours
the
son
Queen
portrait
Victoria, in
solennel
fact,
dans un
still
salon
has
de
her
l'Élysée.
portrait in
Et
one of
l'avenue
the
Georges V
Élysées
est une des plus belles de
lounges, and the Avenue Georges V is one of the most beautiful ones in
Des
Paris.
liens qui unissent
The
nos peuples,
depths of
sans
links that
équivalent dans
unite
l'histoire et le
our
fruit des siècles
peoples,
d'échanges,
unparalleled in our
d'inspirations
history, is a
croisées, mais
fruit
aussi
of
d'alliances sans cesse
exchanges,
bousculées, de rivalités
inspiration,
sans
but
cesse
also
réinventées.
rivalries. In fact, We just live just as in a good novel of Jane Austen, where the greatest hostilities, in fact, reveal paradoxical attractions. Miss Elizabeth Bennet spends hundreds of pages complaining about Mr. Darcy's arrogance, and you know how the novel ends. As far as our two people are concerned, we, in fact, have been such loyal, such devoted enemies that there was no other way than not to become friends. And better. Friends through blood, hope, and glory. The trenches, first of all, the sacrifice of the Allies, the resistance then changed everything. France never forgot that the appeal of Général de Gaulle 85 years ago galvanized resistance from the BBC, and that nothing would have been possible without the Crown and without the City of London and Winston Churchill's War Office. This loyalty and our stories are very closely linked. We're always standing side by side because our values, our existence, sometimes when they're threatened, then that really is the strength of the Franco-British alliance. And today, faced with the aggression in Ukraine, which was launched by Russia, faced by this destabilization of Europe, the crisis in the Middle East, we are certainly wanting to defend the security of our continent and its democratic values. And together, the United Kingdom and France, we really are powers of peace and progress. We're going to be able to ensure that in Europe and elsewhere. Just before the Franco-British summit that we'll have with the Prime Minister, I've come to London ambitious and confident as far as our future. And the 300,000 people on our side, on your side of the channel and ours, really represent the link between this. And we must never, in fact, we must always ensure that the channel does not get wider, because that's our wealth, these links of investment, entrepreneurship, research, science, education, creation. And we mustn't forget this sports rivalry. In fact, at the Olympic Games, at the Paralympic Games, we saw that again. And one of our major compliments was to tell us that the Games of Paris 2024 were as good as the very beautiful games in London. And there have been other competitions that our athletes will be involved with. Rugby World Cup for women, which will be organized in England next month. And in 2027, there'll be the departure of the Tour de France from UK, and it'll go through Scotland, Wales and Wales. And I wanted to also say that it's in this project, there was a project that you've often talked to me about, and on a number of occasions you've written to me about this particular project. So we've decided to put an end to a debate that has been, that lasted about 70 years. We've decided to lend you an emblematic jewel of our history, the Bayeux Tapestry. And this tapestry, in fact, it's an embroidery, not a tapestry, is in fact the conquest of England, which was embroidered by Norman women of the 11th century. And so some people say that it was embroidered here, but I'll allow the specialists decide upon that. But it really is a kind of cartoon, recalling us of William the Conqueror, who also established the foundations of this palace in which we find ourselves tonight.
The crown of England was granted to Duke William by his cousin, King Edward the Confessor. And when Duke William saw the throne occupied by the Anglo-Saxon Earl Harold, he decided to take it back from the man he considered as a traitor. This makes the tapestry not only the story of a military saga, but a spiritual work that depicts punishment of perjury. No spoiler alert needed. You can soon discover the rest of the story yourself on the walls of the British Museum. And for the first time in 900 years, the Bayeux Tapestry will follow the same path as the warriors whose stories it tells and land on British soil. Either they were never made or they were lost, but the final scenes of the tapestry are missing. I see that as even more powerful symbol. In the great mural of Franco-British history, the end has yet to be written. So it is up to us to do it. Yes, our story is built on these conquests and these rivalries. That is the beauty of our unique relationship. And when our museums talk to each other, when your poppies bloom among our bleuets, when Paddington travels to France and Asterix to Britain, when British humour and French irony converge, when our common sense and sensibility overcome our pride and prejudice, we are unstoppable. And when we come together around one table, then everything is possible. Churchill wrote in his notes, as he prepared food supplies for his troops, this wise political maxim: the stomach governs the world. Honor where honor is due. I would like to end my toast. First of all, Your Majesty, to say now, you created the Entente Amicale. And this Entente Amicale will be launched in Windsor in 2025. And we want to believe in this new era. And I would like to end my toast by raising my glass in honor of Your Majesty, of Her Majesty, Queen Camilla, and your family. I raise it in honor of the United Kingdom, of this Entente Amicale that unites our two fraternal peoples in an unwavering alliance. Long live the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Long live France. Long live Franco-British friendship.